إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Now, it's going to be in English, don't worry. It is just a dua that Rasulullah used to make always before starting a khutbah or before starting something, an announcement, something important like I think today. First of all, Jazakumullahu khair to all of you actually, and thank you for the invitation. It is my first time being in, not in Leicester, but my first time being in Loughborough University. And I do appreciate it. It's quite a big building, mashallah, quite a big area actually, not building, big area, mashallah. I'm really pleased being here today, and I hope it will be a start of further more to come, inshallah, furthermore part of relationships, because inshallah I'm planning to do some workshops as well as today is just a small introduction. I heard that we're supposed to do all this Islamic civilization of more than 700, 800 years within 1.5 hours. Now that's impossible, right? But what we're going to do is just to get a quick idea, okay? A sneak peek, a quick idea of what are we talking about. What is Islamic civilization? What is civilization? What is culture? And what is Islamic on it? Now, as I was introduced already, I have been in my last, decades I must say, since I became Muslim in 1992, I have been extensively busy with the research on what has Islam done for us in Europe. What have the Muslims done for us? Now, when I was 15, 16, I grew up in Germany. I went to German schools. And when I grew up there, I loved my history lessons. I really loved them. But I always missed the Islamic element. I missed something like the Muslims have been in Europe as far as I'm aware. As a Greek, I know they've been to Greece, the Balkan Peninsula, Yugoslavia, former Yugoslavia, Bosnia nowadays, and Serbia and Croatia, 7 other countries, Albania, Bulgaria, Romania. As far as I was aware as a Greek, I knew that the Ottomans had already reached up to Vienna. But that was my background as a Greek, right? Many of my German schoolmates who were together with me in the same class did not even know that. They had heard something about Vienna because obviously Germany, Austria, German speakers, of course there's a connection, right? So they had heard about Vienna, the siege of Vienna. But the only thing they knew was the terrible Turkish image, the image of a terrible Turk trying to besiege Vienna twice, big sieges, twice, and in the end surrendering. So what did this mean? The terrible Turks came and they left again. And now we have them, 4.5 million of them living in Germany, nearly 300, 400,000 living in Austria, in the very capital Vienna, which was besieged by these terrible Turks for 200 years. So now, what are we going to do with this? Now we know that the Ottomans have been here. Turks, as they call them. That is already the beginning of the end. The name itself, the very name itself. If you call somebody not by the name, then you are changing something. You are changing already history. And we're talking about history today, right? History. What is history? Any idea? And I want to tell you one thing that I will forget to mention. Please, we're not going to wait for the Q&A session at the end. I don't want you to fall asleep within the hour and then come and wake up and ask me anything that I had answered already before. I want you to participate while I'm busy. Okay? I want you to talk to me. I want to have a dialogue. I want you to ask me questions. And I'm very, very happy, as far as I can see, we have a chaplain here, right? Is this correct? Are you a chaplain? Great. Christian chaplain, Catholic?
Not Catholic, Anglican.
Anglican, thank you. Welcome. Thank you very much for coming. So it is nice to have also non-Muslims participating in these workshops, because actually, Islam Awareness Week is for non-Muslims mainly, isn't it? It should be for somebody who wants to know more about Islam and who doesn't want to be hit by all these images that are surrounding us, as we were even in the 70s, 80s and 90s. Don't think that a lot has changed. Don't think that a lot has changed. I remember in the 90s when I was close to become Muslim, and it took me quite a while. It took me 3 years of intense search, of a struggle, okay? Which actually in Arabic translated means jihad. It was a struggle, an intense struggle inside of me as a Greek, as somebody who's going to high school, as somebody who knows the German society and the European civilization, as somebody who's part of Europe, can I accept Islam? Can I be part of the Muslim world? Isn't it contrary to each other? Isn't there a clash of civilization, like another academic used once as a title for his book? And it was something that really made me think. It was a struggle of 3 years, as I said. In the end, I said Shahad, Alhamdulillah, and I'm very proud. I never look back to this. Alhamdulillah, that was the best thing that actually I could do in my life, next to getting married finally. Okay? So, yes, accepting Islam was one thing, but after this one, getting married is a very important other thing, because as a Muslim man especially, living in societies like this, it is difficult, as you know. So, now, being a Muslim, so now what now? What happened after that? 1992, that was the time, Kuwait, Iraq war, Iran, Iraq, right? All this happened in the Middle East. And I remember a German friend of mine who said, listen, I do understand, you're right. It is something that I'm looking into it myself. You know, I like this religion, I like Islam too. But I think it's a bad time to accept Islam now. Now, has there ever been a good time, now I'm asking you? Since that time, think back. When was there a minute of peace in the Middle East? Since 1992. I'm not talking about before. I'm talking about 1992 when I accepted Islam. When I finally embarked on this journey, I said, yes, I'm still going to do it because I know what Islam is about, and I know it's about your Creator. It's about Allah and you, God who created you, your Creator, and yourself. It has nothing to do with the title that you give to certain religions or certain, systems. So it's about God, and it's about God awareness and fearing God. So I said, imagine I'm going to die next day, and I know it's the truth. What then? So I did do that. I did make my next step. I did take my next step when I did become Muslim in 1992. And again, I'm asking you, have you ever had a minute, was there ever a minute in the Middle East where there was peace? Unfortunately not. Okay? Unfortunately not. So there was never a good time, I think, to become Muslim. Or there was always a good time. So I leave this up to you. Now, let's start straight away, inshallah. First of all, history. Why history? Tell me. Why is history important? And I'm not asking if history is important. I'm saying, why is history important? Of course history is important. I just told you something about myself. That was history. If I disregarded history, I wouldn't have been able to tell you anything about myself. We would start from now on. A minute ago was history. When I entered this building, when I entered the campus, that was history. We should be careful with this, putting things on a shelf and just a framework. The framework should be much bigger, as Islam is giving us quite a big framework. People make it small. Okay, the framework is big, massive, but people make it small. I think I would have to check, because I put the camera there, so nobody can come and sit there, unfortunately. I was not aware of that. Shall we? Sorry, brothers, you would have to go around. Sorry about that. So history, why is history important? Come on, anybody who can tell me that. So we can learn from history. What do you want to learn from history?
I want to learn how people experimented with things before, what worked, what didn't work, what happened, why did it happen, so we can look at ourselves. We can ultimately reveal what humanity is about. For history, you know what kind of, from the past you know what's coming in the future, because you can kind of see what humans are about.
What's your name?
Umbar.
Amber?
Omar.
Omar, listen, I got some really gifts, some nice gifts with me today. And I really think he deserves one already. The principles from the lives of the four rightly guided caliphs, the Khilafah Rashidin. This is for you, Amber, because I find it absolutely great what you said. You really put a lot of emphasis in a very important point. Learning from our past. If we don't learn from our past, and I'm talking about humanity, I'm not talking about Muslims specifically, anybody has to learn from their past. So if we as people, as humans, do not learn from our past, then what? The thing is, there is another sad thing. Yes, many people say that, and it is something typical. Everybody, there is always in a workshop, there is always somebody who will say, yes, we have to learn from our past. We are all aware of it. But what do we really do? Do we really learn from our past? We're living at this moment in very difficult times. I'm sure that 10 years ago they would have said the same. But as Muslims, Nowadays, we're living in Europe and we're living in the West and we're living in very difficult times. We're living at this moment in a time where you as a Muslim are automatically guilty. You're guilty before trial because you are a Muslim. These are the times we're living in at the moment. Okay? Nobody can say no about this one. That's unfortunately the time that we have reached. We have reached the peak at this moment. We've reached a point where people look at you just because you're a Muslim, because you express Islam from your outer appearance, or because you pray 5 times a day, or because of the way you're talking. This alone makes you already, puts you already in a category, on a corner, on a shelf. Dangerous. Because that's what happened 60, 70 years ago in my second home country, in Germany. What happened in Germany 70 years ago? I want you to tell me, living in this country, most of you may be even grown up in this country, tell me, what are the core subjects at your schools here in this country? 3. Which ones are they? What are the core subjects in this country? Maths? English and science. Have I heard history? No. History is not a core subject in this country. Why not? Why not? History is not important? History is not important? I'm not saying it's not important to know how to count and to go to a shop and buy, of course, and sell and get the right change back and everything. So, of course, obviously that's very important. But what about your past? What about your past? How do we make this now here? Oh, I'm just kidding. There you go. Oh, okay. All right. Let's go back and look at some people who are bigger than me. Look at them and see what they have to say about history. History is a guide to navigation in perilous times. History is who we are and why we are the way we are. George Orwell, everybody knows George Orwell, right? What did he say? The most effective way to destroy people is to deny and obliterate their own understanding of their history. Massive statement. Huge. Study the past if you would define the future. Confucius. Those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. And we're not talking about something good. It would be great if you could repeat something that was good in the past. But you know what we repeat? We repeat the worst of the worst. What happened 60 years in Germany, you know what? Many of friends and brothers and people I know in Germany, you know what they're saying nowadays to me? They say, we expect this any moment to happen to us this time in Germany. And you know what? It's not just a German thing. Hitler was not German, do you know that? Adolf Hitler was not even German. What was he? He was Austrian. He was not a German, he was Austrian. It was not a German or an Austrian thing. Because during the same time when Hitler was ruling, there was Franco in Spain. And Franco was in Spain until 1975. There was Salazar in Portugal. There was Mussolini in Italy. But you know what? Southern people actually, you know, we people from the south, Mediterranean people, are more hot-blooded. So when we don't like people, we just get rid of them. What did they do to Mussolini? They just got rid of him when they didn't like him anymore. Right? The Germans didn't do that. The Italians did. Before Hitler had to go, Mussolini went already. Now, it is not a German thing. And I want to make this a point. A very important point. And I find it unfair for many of these, you know, the winners of the war, the Russians or the British or the French or the Americans, to whenever a German expresses their nationalistic feelings, as they can do here, they cannot do that in Germany. I grew up among these people. I grew up among Germans, and I used to visit, you know, several universities and schools before, of course, and people cannot, they feel suppressed. A German feels suppressed by his British or French or American counterparts, because they can express their feelings here. They can say, proud to be British. It's a different thing if we agree with this. Of course we don't agree with this. But a British person can say, I'm proud to be British. I'm proud to be French. I'm proud to be American. But a German cannot. As soon as they open their mouth and say, I'm proud to be German, they're like, oh. Are you Nazi or something? Are you a Nazi? And this is unfair. And this is what has pushed the situation that it is nowadays in Germany as far as it is nowadays. Nowadays we have a counter-reaction, a very strong reaction from Germans, who are not wrong to say, why can you say that all this time? Why can you British people say, I'm proud of being British, I'm proud of being French, I'm proud of being American? Why can't I say, Germany is a superpower in Europe? So why not? Now, history. What does the Quran say about history? We as Muslims have to look into the Book of Allah and find always out, you know, what does Allah say about certain situations? All situations, not only certain situations, everything. And you know what? There is an answer to everything in the Quran. There is an answer to everything in the Quran. Now, several surahs are talking about Allah telling us basically to travel, to go and see what He did to the previous nations. The first ayat, for example, out of Surah Ghafir, can somebody read it in a nice British accent maybe? I don't have this, so anybody? Come on, guys. Yes, bro.
Have they not travelled in the land to see the nature of the consequences for those who disbelieved before them? They were mightier than these in power and in the traces which they left behind them in the earth. Yet Allah sees them for their sins, and they have no protector for Allah.
The first surah. The second one.
And we destroyed no township where there was a known decree for it. No nation can outstrip its appointed time, nor can they lag behind.
The last one.
How many a township have we destroyed while it was sinful, so that lies in ruin, and how many are deserted well and lofty tower? Have they not travelled in the land, so that they may have hearts to feel and ears to hear? For indeed it is not the eyes that grow blind, but it is the hearts in the bosom that grow blind.
Excellent, Jazakallah khair. Now, Allah is telling us clearly, have they not traveled in the land? Now, talking about you, going and see what He has done with civilizations, with these high civilizations, Egypt, Greece, Rome, massive civilizations, Babylon, Assyrians, Sumerians, massive civilizations. Massive civilizations. What happened to them? Gone. What happened to Greece? Look at Greece nowadays. Now we need them to bail us out. Now we need the European Union to bail us out. And there was once a time when Alexander the Great had reached India. Are you aware, for the people who are from the Indian subcontinent, are you aware of the fact that there are some villages in Pakistan, which used to be one part of India, of course, all this in the subcontinent, where they still speak ancient Greek? There are villages in Pakistan where they still speak ancient Greek from the time of Alexander the Great. We're talking about the 4th century BC. Subhanallah. So now, what a massive civilization. And nowadays we cannot even stand up in front of the European counterparts. Now we need to ask for billions of euros to bail us out. Rome, Italy. Look at corruption in a European country. It's funny, I really have to laugh every time they talk about Africa. Africa, corrupt, corrupt, corrupt. Do you know anything about Italy? Talking about corruption, honestly? Talking about Africa? Why don't you go to Africa? Why don't you go to your own, continent to see what's happening here? It is massive. And we can keep talking about this one. We can keep talking about this one. It's a very, very important point. Now, no nation can outstrip its appointed time, nor can they lag behind, Allah says. So, when the time is there, the time is there. Not only for a nation, for a person, individual as well. When your time to die is there, your time to die is there. Do you know the short story, just a quick one? When a certain Muslim arrived at the bazaar, souk, to go and buy something, and he sees the angel of death. He is panicking straight away. He was like, oh my God, oh no, he's coming in for me, oh my God, let's quickly home. He runs back home, on his horse, back home, goes home, locks all the doors, everything. He's like, wow, all right, that's it, good, I'm safe now. Suddenly he hears a knock on the door. He's like, who's that? He opens the door, the angel of death. So what you doing here? I left you behind with the soup. Yeah, I went to get somebody else, now I'm coming for you. SubhanAllah. When the time is there, the time is there. Okay? Don't forget that ever. Now, because we don't have too much time, I would like to, normally I divide you in groups, but we can maybe do that quickly still. Instead of 6-7 minutes, I give you 2 3, just a quick one. Divide you in 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 groups, because we just have 2 3 minutes. 8 groups quickly. These people in front, brothers, check please the first word. Take your phones out, laptops, whatever you have. I'm sure you have connection, right? Internet connection here. Are you? Okay. Check the first word. Fraxine. Fraxinetum. What does it mean? Okay? Quickly, 3 minutes. Next one's in the back. Troubadours. Up to the sisters, the brothers in the back. Troubadours. Okay? Check on the phone. What does it mean? Where does it come from? Who were the troubadours? These brothers here. Check number 3. Azulejos. Or in Portuguese, azulejos. Now I give you an idea already. This part here. Okay? And moros. This part. Okay? Check please the word moros. Where does it come from? What does it mean? Girls in the back. Cordoba.
Very easy.
Sorry?
Very easy.
Okay. Okay. That's why I give it to the sisters, okay? They don't have to work too much, right? Not because they don't need to. You know, in Islam, a girl is a sister, a princess, right? A sister is a princess, so she doesn't have to work. So we give the princess, we give them Cordoba, a very easy one. And then I give you in the back, Ojalá. This one here, number 4, number 6, isn't it? Ojalá. Okay, written with X or with J. Ojalá in the one language, which I'm not going to tell you which one, and Oshala in the other language. Then we have La Convivencia. This one actually. La Convivencia, which is for the brothers all the way in the back. All the way. Okay? From Wolfson on, you know, from you on. Okay, and the last one, Randan. Please. What's your name, sir? Chris. Chris, could you check for me Randan, what it means? Sister, could you also check if you have a phone? You don't know? Oh my goodness, okay. Together with Chris then. Okay. Randan, what does it mean? Where does it come from? Exactly 3 minutes, please, because we don't have that much time.
No signal.
No signal, honestly. Okay, they got something here, so there must be some kind of microphone probably. What do you have, Nokia or something?
Rubbish.
See, they do have, look at that. Next to a good book and knowledge. Can I adopt you? Good. You got them? Okay. Okay. You have sisters? Oh, look at this. You must be Malay, right? Malaysian, right? There you go. I know always in my class, the Malaysians, they always have a tablet. Always you find at least one Malaysian with a tablet. You have signal? You got signals, you got phones or something? Now, as we said, we don't have too much time. Normally, I divide them among four groups, not more. So that 2 each group, 2 for each group, because otherwise, as the brother said, Cordoba is too easy. Cordoba is too easy. Good. Good. Very good. Okay. I gotta see. You got excellent. What do you have again? Okay. Okay, let's start.
Let me take that down.
Straight away. All right, now, number 1, Fraxine. The pronunciation tells you a little bit something. Fraxine, it's a place somewhere. Who was it, Fraxine? Here in front, right? Don't disappoint me, Herbert, come on.
Yeah, fortress.
Fraxine? Fortress, what? Fortress, what?
It's a 10th century fortress established by the Saracen pirates.
And it doesn't tell you nothing, right?
No.
Saracen pirates, what the hell is that, right? Okay, good. You're absolutely right. Is it Wikipedia? No. I didn't mean. No. Listen, I'll tell you one thing. Wikipedia is good to work with, to start with. but then you move, you know, there are links in Wikipedia, and this, so from there on you move on. So whatever you put in, Wikipedia will tell you something. Now if it's all true is another issue, but you go, from there on you go on. So it is not that bad what the brother was given there. So he says it's a fortress, what did you say, fortress?
10th century fortress.
10th century Saracen pirates, he mentioned. Interesting wording, Saracen pirates. Any idea what this might be? Who were the Saracens?
The Europeans referred to the Muslims, so the Turk says.
Say that, what's it? First of all, what's your name? Sorry?
Isa.
Isa. Isa, mashallah, very beautiful name. Okay, so please loud to every. I really need to hear that again, please.
In the times of the Crusade, I don't know if it predates it, but in the times of the Crusades, at least the Europeans would refer to the Turkish people and Muslims in general as the Saracens.
Okay, do you have any idea where it comes from? The word Saracen. Okay, it's a tribe somewhere in Arabia. It was a tribe somewhere in Arabia. Okay, and they just took this. I mean, they knew that time at least that time already. They knew that there was a tribe somewhere in Arabia, so they just took the name and just called them, instead of calling them what they were, Muslims, they called them Saracen. Okay, good. So Saracen pirates. Saracen pirates, they went to this area, established a fort in the 10th century, right?
Yeah,
According to Wikipedia, right?
according to, somewhere in France.
Somewhere in France, excellent. So somewhere in France, some Saracen pirates established a fort somewhere in France. Any idea where in France it might have been?
Marseille?
Where?
Marseille or Cannes?
Marseille, Cannes, close, you're close. Marseille is around 100 kilometers from there.
Saint-Tropez.
Saint-Tropez, very close, is around that area. Fréjus, okay, that area. Yeah, Saint-Tropez is very close to Saint-Tropez, it's close to Fréjus. These are the areas nowadays. There is a small, tiny town, okay, in the south of France nowadays, not far from Nice, not far from Monaco, and this is not called Fraxinet anymore, but it comes originally, it was established by the Muslims. Fraxinet is the French name, Fraxinetum is the Latin name for it, and the Arabic one was Farakshinet. Farakshinet. Okay? So that has to do with the Franks living there, so the French people. Okay? That's what it basically meant. Okay? And Isa, mashallah, you need your book. Excellent. Okay? Very good. Where is he? Excellent. Thank you. Now, so indeed, Fraxinet is a very important term. Now, 10th century, have you ever heard of the French being, was it, you know, something about niqab in France, something about women and men and problems? What does this have to do with Fraxinet? Any idea? Yeah. First thing, I want you to know, Islam did not come to Europe in the 1960s as they misinform us and every average European thinks. Okay? That it was your parents who came here, or that it was our parents who came here from Turkey, from Morocco, from Algeria, from Tunisia in the 60s to work in their factories. That is not true. That did happen, but that's not how Islam entered Europe. Islam and Islamic civilization and culture did not come to Europe in the 1960s. It came long before. 10th century France. There was a base, that was the base of the Muslims in France, Fraxinet. 10th century. And from there on, and listen to that, from there on the Muslims went and conquered, or opened we should say, Switzerland. Switzerland was part of the Muslim world for 60 to 70 years, yes. The very country which is today nowadays is banning the minarets, which are just a 4 of in the whole country. Okay? Because they say the Muslims have no place in Switzerland. We're talking about the 10th century. 10th century Switzerland was part of the Muslim world until St. Gallen, all the way the north of Switzerland, until the border of Germany. Okay? That's the very country which says no, Islam has no part, has nothing to do with us here, because these guest workers who came to work for our factories in the 60s, in the 1960s, you know, what do they have to, what are they, what is their contribution to our society here? The contribution to Switzerland, to France, and to many other parts in Europe is these very Saracens, pirates, they left behind something very, very important. France. What is the biggest export good of France? What does France produce next to Renault and Peugeot? Wine. How do they close wine bottles? Cork. Who told them how to make them? Exactly. The Muslims. Exactly. Exactly. In the 10th century, the Muslim pirate Saracens, the uncivilized, arrived in France, settled in Fraxinet, in that area which is nowadays Fréjus, Saint-Tropez, this area, and they thought they were living together with the Christians. Ooh, the bad Muslims came and they killed them all, right? They raped their women, killed all their children, right? But strangely enough, there were Christians around them and they were living together with them still. So they taught them how to make cork, how to produce cork. And the biggest part of cork actually in France comes exactly from that area. That's proof enough, I think. Now, next, the troubadours. Troubadours. Yes, ma'am.
Group of poets with special kind of lyrics.
Okay.
We used to. Their major theme is love, courtly love. They used to be in southern France and northern Italy during from 11th to 15th century.
Did you check this out, or did you know that?
I just checked it.
You just checked it.
Yeah.
You know, if you had light, you could look at it. MashaAllah, you still have a chance. Good, MashaAllah. Excellent. Jazakallah khair. What's your name?
Muhammad.
Muhammad. Very true what the brother said. Troubadours, group of poets walking through Italy and Spain and France. Especially the south of France has become famous for that, the Provence. By the way, the very, very spot where the pirates, where the Saracen pirates arrived, where they established Fraxinet, the very spot, the very same spot, was the spot where they actually came from. Strangely enough, as we know, the love of the Arabs before Islam for poetry, right? We know the love of the Arabs for poetry, right? We know what they brought with them to Europe. If you can tell me that before the 10th century in France there were troubadours, then I will tell you what a charlatan am I to tell you all these things about the Muslims in Europe. Because it was not the Muslims who brought poetry to Europe. It was probably the Greeks or the Romans, right? Because everything goes back to the Greeks. Indeed, many things in Europe, without the ancient Greeks, Europe would most probably still live on the trees. But who brought knowledge from the ancient Greeks over here? And who corrected knowledge? Because if it was everything that was Greek, then we should still believe that the center of the universe is this earth. And I'm very, very sure that none of us believes that, right? Okay? And it's the sun going around the earth, right? And everything else, the earth is sitting still, right? And everything goes around the earth. That's Aristotelian philosophy. Aristotle believed that. And Aristotle gave this through. And you know what? The Christian church believed this until recently, especially the Catholics, right, sir?
Disagree.
Sorry?
The book of Job talks about a globe,
Okay.
a sphere hanging in space. It doesn't say where it is in position relative.
I'm not saying what the Bible says. I said the Catholic Church's official version was that.
Yes.
Aristotelian philosophy.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? You're right. Thank you. Now, so basically, if we said everything comes back and goes back to the ancient Greeks in Europe, a lot of it is true. But who brought it here? And the Greeks nowadays admit it and say, yes, these Arabs did that. It was not these Arabs. First of all, as I said again, call them by their name. Who was the first Muslim to arrive to set foot in Europe? Who was it? That's my phone, I know. You. Say it.
Tariq bin Zayd.
Tariq bin Ziyad. Tariq bin Ziyad. Who was Tariq bin Ziyad?
And Musa bin Nasir, both.
Who was the one who set foot, who arrived in Spain was Tariq bin Ziyad. Musa bin Nasser was in North Africa still. Okay? Musa bin Nasser was a sultan. But Tariq bin Ziyad was a general. He was sent. Who was Tariq bin Ziyad? What was he? Was he a Turk? Was he an Arab? Was he a Malay? Was he an Indonesian? What was he? Exactly, he was a Berber. He was a Berber. Sir, are you from North Africa?
Me?
The one who said Berber. Somebody said Berber.
No.
You. Are you from North Africa? No? Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, no? No? Somebody said Berber, didn't it?
Yeah, I
Who?
said Berber, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Berber. Okay, you are Moroccan. You are Moroccan. Morocco? Maghreb? Aljazair? Tunis? يا أخي من وين يا أخي؟
السعودية.
من Saudi, mashallah. Good, mashallah. You see how mixed you guys come, you know? So, indeed, Berber. Tariq bin Ziyad was a Berber. Do you know what this means actually, Berber?
Tribes.
It's a tribe. It was a tribe, or it is a tribe, a massive tribe from Morocco to Egypt. But who named them Berbers? The Greeks. The ancient Greeks who had contact with North Africa named these people living in North Africa, the indigenous people who were not Arabs, the indigenous people of North Africa, the Berber people named them Berbers. Why? Because, listen, var. I don't know what you're saying. Varvaros, Berber. I don't know what you're saying. So the Greeks would not be able to understand what these guys were saying. So for that reason, they gave them the name Varvaros in Greek, which is Berber. And everybody who was not Greek, by the way, was a Berber, was a barbarian. Okay, so from Varvaros it became barbarian, became Berber, right? Barbarian is a negative name. Negative, of course, but Berber is what these people are. So that's why they changed it in English or in the European languages. Actually, Varvaros and Ververos is not too far off, it's the same thing. So for every Greek, anybody who you could not understand, you would call them barbarians. Okay? That was the idea at the time. So now you can understand a little bit when Alexander the Great arrived in India and he got married to a beautiful princess, Iranian princess by the way. Anybody Iranian here? Any Iranian? No? Okay, so can I say that? They're beautiful women. So Alexander the Great had super taste, right? Alexander the Great had very good taste. So he got married to an Iranian princess. And all these Greeks who were with him, they were upset with him. So why that? Don't we have enough women in Greece? Or in Macedonia, whatever? Don't we have enough women? Anyway, now, just a small part next to it. Now, so, third one, before we go on quickly because we don't have enough time, unfortunately, azulejos and azulejos. Yes?
It's Portuguese for tiles.
For the tiles. What tiles? Tell us a bit more. That's great. Well, you mentioned something very important. What's your name? Ahmed, mashallah. Ahmed says, azulejos actually is Portuguese, right? Very true. And azulejos is Spanish. Okay? Now, you will find these terms in Spanish and in Portuguese, like the one that we're coming to see later, ojalá and oxalá. You will find both terms, just the pronunciation is different. They come originally from Arabic. Azulejos has to do with the tiles. You will see a typical, Ahmed, Jazakallah khair, very nice, thank you. You will see when you go to Portugal or when you go to Spain, you will see this typical Iberian art nowadays, right? It has become Spanish and Portuguese, right? Everything has a certain national identity nowadays, right? Like pizza is Italian, right? Pizza is Italian, right? Yeah, right. You know, pizza is Italian. It has become, it was marketed by the Italians, but where did it come from, pizza? What is pizza? Lahmacun. Is anybody from Central Asia, from Kurdistan or somewhere? There you go, lahmacun. Lahmacun was there before pizza was there. That's the proof of pizza coming from there. And most probably Marco Polo, you know, traveling from all the way from China at that time, he brought spaghetti over, pasta. Everything Italian is not Italian. Whoa. Man, the Italians hate this. When you tell them this, they hate me. It doesn't matter. The Greeks hate me too. It doesn't matter. Many people, it doesn't matter. So you tell them pizza is not Italian, pasta spaghetti is not Italian. What are we going to do now? It's not. Okay, it's not. What are we going to do now? So, the best of all is you go to an Italian gelateria. What is gelateria? Ice cream. Okay, you go to a shop to go and get ice cream. And please, go to somebody who's Italian, please. And you tell them, come stai, mio amico mio, come stai? Gelato arabe. You ask them for an Arabic ice cream. Look at you like, what? I don't have these things, we have Italian ice cream here. So my friend, you're totally wrong. You're totally wrong. It was the Tunisians during the Aghlabid dynasty who invented ice cream in Spain, in Italy. Ice cream was invented by the Tunisians, by the Muslims from North Africa. Okay? Mind blowing, isn't it? I know. That's my work. I sit down and I blow my mind every day. Imagine what this must mean to certain people. It goes against your national identity, national pride. If I told the Greeks now that actually, our heroes, the döner, kebab, it's actually not Greek, it most probably is Turkish, right? Because the Ottomans obviously were in Greece. Try to order Turkish coffee in Greece. Okay? They got killed first and then you were again. There is no Turkish coffee according to them. There is Greek coffee. It's exactly the same. Greek coffee and Turkish coffee is just the name different. Okay, it's exactly the same. Who brought coffee over to Europe? The Ottomans. Of course, the Ottomans. Where does coffee come from?
From Yemen and Syria.
Exactly. Ethiopia, Yemen, from this area because of the trade. You know that there was a time in Vienna, because of the siege, the Catholic Church would warn any Viennese who would go to a cafeteria, because they opened coffee shops in Vienna and in Austria, and they would warn them not to go to drink this Muslim drink because it might turn you to Muslim. Okay? By the way, if you want to know more about it, I got 3 of my books here. Okay? One about Greece, the Ottomans in Greece, one about Hungary, one about Vienna. So what I'm just telling you, all these things are in there. Okay? 3 books that you can get together, inshallah, you can buy them today for 3, with a DVD also in there. Okay? Documentaries. So, and separate of them, there are 2 documentaries, one about Greece and one about the Ottoman capitals. There were 3, by the way. So, after that, inshallah. Business later. Let's finish this off. So, azulejos, indeed tiles, a specific Iberian art nowadays. It's Iberian, right? And Moros. Who are the Moros? Not only the Moroccans. The Spanish call everybody who is a Muslim Moros nowadays, okay? And that time as well. What does Moros mean? It comes from Greek. And it means mavros, it means black. There was a time when black people were highly civilized. Imagine that, right? It's hard to believe for a European, right? The super race, the Aryan race, had a problem. There were people coming from Africa civilizing them, bringing culture and civilization over, especially in the Iberian Peninsula, Spain, Portugal, France. These people came from North Africa, Mauritania, from these areas, and some of them were darker people because they were Berbers. As we said before, Tariq bin Ziyad arrived first in Spain, actually in Gibraltar. What is Gibraltar? Jabal Tariq, the mountain or hill of Tariq. The very name of the person who set foot in Europe and in Spain is here, Gibraltar, Jabal Tariq, the mountain of the hill of Tariq. By the way, we're recording everything what I'm saying here. When I put it later on YouTube, I will have some of these intelligent people who will come and make comments at the end and say, you see, I told you this guy is not Greek. He speaks too good Arabic. He cannot be Greek. You're laughing. I had these comments because I said things in good Arabic. MashaAllah, I'm happy about this one because I'm a linguist as well. So I had comments like, this guy is not Greek. I told you. So, watch out. So, Moros. So, Mavros, black people. So instead of calling them what they were, Muslims from North Africa, None of them gave themselves an identity of, they were not Arabs, they were not Berbers, they were not nationally identifying themselves, but they called themselves Muslims. They just called them Moros. Okay, the Spanish people, the ones who didn't accept Islam, because hey, there was a massive conversion rate from Christians and Jews alike who accepted Islam within the first 10 years, okay, of the Iberian Peninsula of Spain having been opened by the Muslims. Cordoba, the easy part. Cordoba, ladies, sisters in the back. Cordoba.
It's a city in Andalusia.
A city in?
Andalusia.
Okay, where is Andalusia?
In Spain.
Where?
South of Spain.
Okay, what did the Muslims call Spain? Al-Andalus. That time they called the whole Iberian Peninsula Al-Andalus. Nowadays it's a small province in the south of Spain which is called Andalusia. Thank you, you're absolutely right. Yeah? Sister, what's your name?
Nilo.
Neela, okay. Neela, where are you from?
My...
Kurdistan?
No, Pakistan.
Pakistan, oh, okay.
Afghanistan.
Oh, that area, okay, mashallah, very good. I might have, wait a second. I must have some more. Good question, good answer, mashallah. Yeah, so I leave this here for you in case you want to exchange it. I don't know, I have something quite neutral. This one is not very neutral. So if you can come and check what you like, you can have a book later, inshallah, okay? Okay, so so Cordoba, yeah, a city in the south of Spain. What about the city? I would like to know more still about it. Do you know anything more about the city? Wait, this is this one.
Wikipedia. It was captured by the Muslims in the 8th century, it says. So 711, something around there. And then it goes on to tell the story how they stormed the city.
Yes, and does it also tell you how many women it kills and how many children? No,
Not specified, but...
it doesn't, because it didn't happen, that's why. Sometimes difficult even to invent, even for them it's difficult to invent this. So,
It was the capital of the Umayyad state there.
mashallah, yeah, Saudi again, Saudi. Mean where? Jeddah or Taif or what? Mecca, Medina, huh?
From Riyadh.
Riyadh. Okay. I was not allowed to enter Riyadh, by the way, when I was in Saudi, because they said the visa just goes up to Mecca, Medina. That's it. After that, it's another country. So anyway, nice. So Jazakallah, okay. Indeed, Cordoba was the capital of the Muslim world that time. And you know what? There was a time when Cordoba was the second biggest city in Europe, after Constantinople. And you know what? It was definitely the first one with regards to culture and civilization. Okay, even in contrast to Constantinople, which was a mighty city, no doubt about it. But you know, there would be Europeans coming down to Cordoba, going to the Muslim world to study at the universities which the Muslims invented in North Africa and in Spain. And they went down to study, as you are sitting here studying in the European universities nowadays, they would come down to the Muslim world in Spain and study at the Muslim universities, and they would have to learn Arabic. They would have to even learn from the Quran, passages from the Quran, to be able to be accepted by the universities. Do you know that? They would do that. And then they would go back to Europe, and they would tell them, guys, unbelievable, I was in Cordoba. There are lights on the street. They had lamps, light on the street. So when they went back to Paris or to London or to wherever, people would not believe them. So what is this guy saying? He went to the Muslims there, they probably brainwashed him. There were lights on the street of Cordoba at that time. That time when in Paris, what am I saying in Paris? Louis XIV had a castle built for himself. The palace of Versailles was built for Louis XIV. Do you know why it has so many corners? Can you imagine why there's so many corners? Because they didn't have irrigation system and toilets this time. So that time the French would do their business somewhere in a corner. These are not my words. If you go to take a guide, a trip to Versailles, they would tell you that the French king would do his business over there in these corners, and his servants would do their business there. That was Paris, France of the 16th, 17th century. And now we're talking about Spain of the 8th and 9th century, ladies and gentlemen. Subhanallah. Okay. Ojalá. Ojalá. Or, the Portuguese would say, Oxalá. It comes from Inshallah. It's exactly the same meaning. The difference is that when the Spanish and the Portuguese people speak to each other, they use it without realizing that this word is actually, it comes from Islamic terminology, not Arabic, Islamic terminology. So they use these words and they say, vamos a vernos mañana, inshallah, ojalá. Ojalá vamos a Córdoba. We're going to Córdoba tomorrow, ojalá. Okay, this is something which is very common in Portuguese and in Spanish. And it comes from the Islamic inshallah, not Arabic, Islamic inshallah, it's unbelievable. When the torero, the bull ring, right, the bull is coming. What does he say? Ole. Ole. What is ole? It comes from Allah. It means Allah, I made it, thank you. That's what it means, subhanallah. No, that's the etymology. No, again, you can check all these things that I'm telling you today. It's nothing new, okay? Nothing that just Dr. Stef Keris knows, right? It's something that you need to go deeper into it, you will find this. It's there. The last two, la convivencia. La convivencia.
The period of time when Muslims ruled Spain all the way until 1492.
MashaAllah. What's your name? Omar? Omar. Got something very nice for you. There you go. This is for Omar. Can you give it through, please? So it's a period of time that when the Muslims ruled Spain and Portugal, don't forget that, we're talking about the Iberian Peninsula, we're talking about Spain and Portugal. La convivencia. What we are so proud of democracy nowadays, that was the democracy of the time that was called la convivencia, which actually means nothing else but coexistence. Coexistence, Muslim, Christians and Jews. That was their policy. Their policy was called coexistence. I don't see any country nowadays having a policy of coexistence. That was the 8th century Spain and Portugal. Coexistence, meaning all faiths live next to each other, with each other, trade with each other, live with each other. I'm not the one who's going to say there were never incidents and issues in Spain from 711 to 1492. I'm not going to say that, I'm not that naive, but I want you to show me one pogrom in Spain of the time where the Jews, Christians and Muslims were living together. One pogrom, I challenge you. One pogrom. What is a pogrom? What these guys were doing in Europe the whole time, killing Jews and getting them out of their shops. That's a pogrom. I want you to show me during that time one pogrom in Spain against the Jews. One. Then I take everything back. You will not be able to find one. Not one. Nobody during Muslim Spain went out and killed Jews because they were Jews. Nobody went to smash in windows and say don't buy at Jewish shops because they were Jews. Nobody had a hater towards Jews or Christians because they were Jews or Christians. Nobody. And that was going on for 700 years. From 711 to 1492. 700 years of coexistence, of convivencia, Christians, Muslims and Jews. 1492, what happens? Queen Isabella comes down to Granada, the last bastion of the Muslims. What happens to the Muslims in Granada? What happens to the Jews first? Let's take the Jews first, because we want to be historically accurate, right? I don't want anybody to come and tell me that I'm talking nonsense. What happened to the Jews as soon as the Christian king and queen Isabella arrived from the rest of Spain, which was Christian at the time? They signed a treaty. They signed a treaty between the Muslims living in Granada and Queen Isabella. And the treaty said that the Muslims living in this city are free to practice their religion, are free to get to dress as they want to, are free to call the adhan, are free to have madrasas. The Jews had to leave. And most of the Jews went where?
Ottoman Empire.
To the Ottoman Empire, to the other side. To the other Muslims. Sultan Selim, that time, who received the Jews in his empire, you know what he said? He said, Queen Isabella, you're calling them wise kings and queens? They got rid of the most important element in their empire. Thanks God, let them come to me. Let them come to me, because they needed that time. We're talking about 1492. That was 40 years after the opening of Constantinople. That time they needed desperately people to get Istanbul to where it is nowadays, and even that time Constantinople became a massive city, and also because of the influence of the Jews. So, now please, do you see how important history is? Now let anybody come and tell you that Muslims are anti-Semitic, that Islam itself is this and that, has a problem with the Christians and the Jews, and we can prove in history that this is absolutely nonsense. Okay? Whereas we can also prove in history that there were the Crusades, you know, and when the Crusaders arrived in 1204 in Constantinople, you know, what did they do in 1204 in Constantinople? Anybody an idea? When the Fourth Crusade arrived in Constantinople, where there were Christian brethren, their own people there, what did the Crusaders do in Constantinople? Chris, what did they do? You remember?
I remember rightly, it was a disgusting annihilation.
3 to 4 days, the horses were in blood. And these are Christian historians who wrote this. Okay? Christian sources. Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, what did he do? He also killed all the people, right? He killed all Christians. He got rid of them as soon as he, you know, conquered or opened other cities, right? Which were conquered by the Christians at that time. Is this true? Of course not. We all know who Salahuddin al-Ayyubi was and why he was such a great person. Because he was a practicing, believing Muslim. That's not what a Muslim does. A Muslim does not kill innocent people. In battle, when there's a war, you fight another soldier. But you do not kill women. You don't even cut down trees. Do you know that? Islamic warfare. We are not allowed to cut down trees. We are not allowed to kill animals. Alright. So, la convivencia. Ramadan, the last one. Ramadan. Yes, Chris?
Well, we've got 3 different things.
Okay, no problem.
A night out on the town in Glasgow. Okay? Which is a link to the word random. Gone out and been random.
That's a new one, that's great, excellent.
We've got a 3-oared boat.
Okay.
So where you have one person with 2 short oars in the middle,
Oh, okay.
a person at the front with 1 oar, and a person at the back with 1 oar.
Okay.
How it works, I have no idea. Where it comes from, no help at all. The third one we have is a place near Vichy, Clermont-Ferrand, not far from Geneva, not far from Bordeaux in France, where in the 12th century there was a large castle. I can't go any further than that. I don't know who built the castle. I don't know if there was a community at Ramadan, and I don't know the etymology of the word.
Thank you very much. Excellent, really. You want a book?
Yeah.
You come down here and choose any one of them.
Come and get one of the end.
Okay, any one of them. Not any one of them, they cost money. Alright, just to make this clear here. So Chris, thank you very much. Excellent. The first 2, I need to write them down. Actually, I'm recording this, so I need to write them down because I've never heard of them. The third one, okay. But what I actually meant was, and it's very difficult to find indeed if you don't know that language where it comes from. Now, another teaser question here, and really that deserves really a book. What language do people speak in Malta?
It's a mixture of languages. One of them is Arabic.
Who said this?
In fact, if you
What's your name? Sorry.
Nabi,
Nabi, where are you from?
Tunisia.
Okay, I got the wrong person here, but okay, good. Okay, good, yes. So tell us please loud, what language do they speak in Malta?
It's a mixture of languages, but
Very
mostly it's Arabic. And in fact, because I'm Tunisian personally, when I hear the numbers from 1 to 10, for instance, it's exactly in Tunisian dialect, which is amazing to me as well.
Okay, now indeed the official languages are 2, English and Italian. Unofficially, none of them speaks English or Italian to your grandma. Come on, you go to nanny, you don't say, hey, come stai, granny? And you don't say, how are you, grandma? You say, كيف الحال? Aha.
Yes.
You say, كيف الحال? And this is pure Arabic. It's a language which is an Arabic dialect, 60 to 70% Arabic terms in that language, which is called Maltese or Malti, okay, which any Maltese speaks. Mind-blowing, isn't it? I tell you, I blow my mind every day. 60 to 70%, the only Arabic dialect in the world that is written with Latin letters, the only Arabic dialect in the world which can be found among indigenous people in Europe. Okay? And the brother is right, it is very, very close to a North African dialect. Okay? They can understand Libyans. They used to have actually the Libyan embassy there, which used this as their base that time to the rest of Europe. So indeed, okay? Okay, this definitely deserves it. Is this your son?
Yes.
MashaAllah, I got 2 books today. It's unfair actually, but it's good. No, it's good. It's very good, MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Okay, great. Now, indeed, North African dialect, the Libyans felt at home when they would go to Malta. North Africans feel at home. They speak their language. Unbelievable, isn't it? And that's the main thing that the Muslims left behind in Malta. Their language, which is not a small thing. Their language was in Maltese. Ramadan in Maltese means, it comes from Ramadan, but it does not mean Ramadan. It means the Christian Lent. Okay, the celebration of Lent. They use, imagine, an Arabic Islamic terminology like Ramadan is used to describe a Christian festival. Unbelievable, isn't it? So, now, what have the Muslims done for us in Europe? Nothing, right? Absolutely nothing. We have nothing that we owe the Muslims in Europe as Europeans. By the way, I'm a double European, right? I'm Greek and German. As long as Greece is still part of the European Union. I can still say that. I pray that we still stay part of the European Union. You know? So as long as Greece is still part of the European Union, I'm a double European, so I can say that now, okay? So, what do we owe the Muslims? A lot. A lot. And I want each and every one of us to think about, there was once a time when the Christians would refer to their history as a Christian history in the Christian part of world history. After the Second World War, after the Holocaust, they started referring to it as a Judeo-Christian history. My question is, what has to happen to the Muslims in Europe to refer to it to the truth, to call it Muslim Judeo-Christian? Now I would like to stop here exactly. I want you just to think. It's not paranoia. I want you just to think carefully. Because 1992 to 1995, something happened right in front of our very eyes. While we were sitting here and we were watching it on TV, Muslim brothers and sisters were killed in Bosnia because of what they were, which they were not even aware of. Most of the Muslims in Bosnia did not even know how to spell Islam. And they were killed just because they were circumcised. They were killed just because the name was Ali. Just because the name was Muhammad or Ahmed. And you know what they told them? They were telling them, you dirty Turks, go back to Turkey. How will you be able to understand this hatred of a Serbian Orthodox person towards the very same people who were his neighbors, the very same people who speak his language, the very same people who were even married to their wives? Who else would you understand this if you don't understand history? They say, go back to Turkey. What did they mean with that now? Do you understand what they meant to them? Why they called them Turks? The very same people who were their neighbors speaking the same language all generations in Yugoslavia. They referred to them as Turks. Why? Because of the Ottoman Empire. Because the Ottoman Empire came to the Balkan Peninsula, the Ottomans, and people accepted Islam. These were not Turks. These are people from the Balkan. Okay? My father is Greek. He comes from an area which is 70 kilometers to the Albanian border. My father looks more like an Albanian or Bosnian than any other Greek, than any other Albanian looks. So, what are we saying here? We're talking about Islam has no part of Europe. 700 years in the Iberian Peninsula, 250 years in Sicily, more than 300 years in the whole of Italy actually, 500 years the Ottomans in the Balkan Peninsula, from Vienna all the way down to Greece, to Cyprus. Islam has nothing to do in Europe, no influence at all. And when you ask the Greeks, what have the Turks brought you, the Turks, the Ottomans, then they say nothing. 500 years of no influence at all. All our cuisine is Turkish. All Turkish, all Greek cuisine, we probably have just 10% Greek. Everything else is Turkish. What would we have eaten today? So really, subhanallah, it is sad. It's very, very sad. Now, it's a quarter past. Still give you a chance, inshallah, to ask any questions you want to, because you were not in between. I didn't hear anybody asking anything. But I know the traditional way is 1 hour, then half an hour. But I don't like it anyway. But please, any questions you have, anything now. Yes, sister.
You know how you said, someone said that Tariq bin Ziyad was the first Muslim in Europe, that he came, I don't know what time that was.
7-11.
But, I mean, surely the Europeans had encounters with Muslims before that, like with Ibn Fadl,
Of course.
coming to the Vikings.
Yes, Constantinople. Yes, yes,
The
Omar.
first, even though he came maybe as just a single person, but the encounter with Muslims was a lot earlier than that.
The encounter with Muslims was from the very beginning of, during the time of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ with the Byzantines. No doubt about it, yes. But there was an encounter in a way of fighting. There was no Muslim who went to Europe and stayed there. Because of, I mean, not known at least.
Yeah.
But what I meant, 7-11, Tariq bin Ziyad was the first Muslim who arrived, brought with the Muslims and settled also in Spain. From that time on, Islam never left actually Spain really. Okay? And the rest of Europe. It went into France to Switzerland. Okay? So that's the way that, that's the first encounter that there was with Muslims in the way of Muslims coming and bringing Islam into Europe. Before not, it was more a fight. Okay? Fighting them on a battlefield, go back again. The one this side, the other one that side. Okay?
But then Ibn Fadl, he did come to fight. He was a traveler.
Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He wrote his journey and he went all the way up to Scandinavia, etc. So.
There's so many, yeah, there's so much still, no doubt about it. There's so much still, and I'm still busy with it. There is so much, and Scandinavia is a very interesting case, by the way, with the Vikings. I even heard, and I read some sources, which are not, I don't know how accurate they are, that's what I'm trying to figure out, that there were Vikings who accepted Islam.
Yeah, because I grew up in Sweden. So
Oh, mashallah.
Yeah, I've heard that a couple of times.
Excellent, yeah. It's coming slowly out. It is something, what it is, we have to understand, with the climate that we're in nowadays, it is not something positive to be associated with Islam and the Muslims. So everybody's trying to avoid the history that might have any connection with it. I just explained to Awab, I'm going to, in the summer, I'm going to Switzerland, inshallah, and to Italy, to Switzerland and France, inshallah, to do the documentary about what I was just talking about, vaccines with France and Switzerland in general. And I wrote to the Swiss Tourism Board in London to give me some information about the Saracens. I didn't call them Muslims because that's what they call them. We call them Saracens. So I wrote to them. That was 2 weeks ago. I still haven't got an answer back. I called them. I said, what is happening? Oh, we are looking into it, sir. You've been looking for it for 2 weeks now. You haven't even replied to me back. You haven't even said thank you for your email or something. It's a very, very sensitive issue here. Who are you? Why are you coming to do that? I had already problems in Greece. When I was doing my documentary for the Greek book, when I finished that, which was 3 years of research, when I finished my Greek book and I went down to Greece, and I went all over from north down to Athens, and we filmed, and I had a crew with me, I would have, secret agents following me, standing right next to me, trying to intimidate us. And honestly, I was wondering, what is that? We went to mosques, we would come out, suddenly there were people standing there. I went to the Mufti's office, we have 3 Muftis in Greece. I went to the Mufti's office, he receives a phone call during the interview. And he says, yes, he is here. Yes, thank you very much. All right, thank you, I'll do that. He hangs up. He says, you know who this was? I said, I can imagine. Yes, they asked me if you were here. Can you believe that? And what did I do? I am making a documentary about the history of Greece. I was stopped twice, once in the north and once in Athens, to ask my papers. They came with English, you know. Hello, can I have passport? I'm like, I speak Greek, it's okay. Oh, they were surprised I spoke Greek. Right, as if they didn't know who I was. So they asked for passport, they asked the cameraman, everything. You cannot believe what a theater it was. You can just not believe. And that was my home country. So, that was Greece. Now, in Vienna, that was funny. In Vienna, actually, they didn't really do a lot. They were just observing us. They didn't come to ask, because it had gone through already. My first documentary was Greece. After that was Vienna, and after that was Hungary. So it had gone through already, so people knew. So, believe me, it has become crazy. It's crazy. People get, there's a kind of, what do you call it? Euphoria. There's a, oh, you're busy with Islam. What are you saying? What are you saying about us? What about the Muslims? Who are you? What? Yeah. 500 years of Ottoman history in Greece. The school books, the Greek school books, I still have them at home. Our Greek school books from that time, they still teach them nowadays. You know what they say? One chapter about the Ottomans. These bloodthirsty, terrible animals who came and raped our women and killed our children. And after 500 years, we got rid of this yoke. That's all they're saying about the Ottomans. 500 years, there is a history of one chapter, worth it of 1-2 sentences in the Greek school book. And then you wonder why the Greeks are so uneducated with regards to their history. Pathetic, really pathetic. Yeah. Yes. Yes, go.
As we are from Greek ancestry, I have a question about something historical, and it's related to the connection between Muslim, Islam, and Europe. I've heard about that the original scriptures of Aristotle and Plato philosophy were lost, and because actually they were translated into Arabic, the only
resources
are translated from Arabic.
Okay, look, it's what I said before. You remember when the Muslims were in Toledo, for example, in Spain, a Spanish city called Toledo, they established the first time in European history at all, they established an Institute of Translation in Toledo. And during that time, Christian Muslims and Jews were translating especially ancient Greek and Roman sources. And they were translating them in Arabic but also in Latin. So a lot of this work happened that time already in Spain by the Muslims. So yes, there is a lot of sources that we will find nowadays, Greek sources, you will find them rather in Arabic than in ancient Greek, because of that time. Because they were translated that time into Arabic, and many of these sources went over with the people who came to study here. They came over to libraries in Europe. They went over to Paris and London because of people coming and study from European university, from Europe to Spanish Muslim universities. So yes, you will be able to find a lot of resources from that time. It's rather in Arabic than in Greek, but there are some Greek sources as well. Okay, but you will be able to find many of them in Arabic, yeah, because of that time, because of the translation that was happening that time. So, yes? Yeah.
I don't think many people can deny that Muslim civilizations brought quite a lot to Europe with regards to science and learning and lots of other things. But do you think it's enough that you sort of educate people about the history of those things? Because lots of civilizations, like you started with by saying, contributed to modern times. It wasn't simply the Muslims. So is it enough just to say to people, this is our history, and in a way, well, you should be grateful and treat us as equals? Is that enough, or should we be doing something now as Muslims within these societies and within these communities to actually be a proof and to actually be sort of an reflection and an example of those times? Or is it simply enough just to say, well, this is what we bought, this is what we gave them? Because really, it's not you and I who bought those things. It's not you and I who gave those things. So what would you say now to the younger generation? To say, well, you need to bring history back to life then. Because, like you said, if history is to mean anything, then we need to reenact it almost for the better, for the good, surely. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you in a way said everything already. the point of, I think we have to understand, the point of learning history is what? It's not learning the dates and the numbers and whatever happened on a specific date, but it's about learning what happened in order to understand how we can improve our situation nowadays or for our future, to work towards it. History is not there to just learn something that happened in the past and finish, and that's it. It has an influence to nowadays. And I don't just mean, when I'm talking, actually any history is Islamic history. Any history is important for our youth. And any history is important for all of us here sitting here. Okay? It's not a specific part that I'm taking out from 600 on and say, this is the only part that is interesting in history and important to us. No. No. But, because we've never been told and never taught, we've never been taught this type of history. The Swiss have no idea about their country being part of the Muslim world for 60, 70 years. Why shouldn't I come out now and say that finally? Why shouldn't finally we also be proud, show to that, be proud if I can use this term, because you are absolutely right in saying it was not me participating in 900 and doing what they did, but I consider my ancestors being two parts. I had Greek ancestors and I had Muslim ancestors. And I'm very proud of both of them. Now, what do we do with that? What do we do with it? That's the point, very important point, yes. I'm saying that if nowadays in the media and all over the world you hear that Muslim equals terrorist, right? Yes. Do we agree? Can we agree with this? No? You have a difficulty to understand. You have difficulty to understand this one. Do you see that? All right. So now, if you say Muslim or Islam is equivalent to terrorism, then I want to come out and say, where do you base it on? What is the basis of your accusation? How come we as Muslims were living in this country at least for 60, 70 years, since the 1950s, 60s, and longer, okay, going back even deeper, and nothing happened before, and now in the last 10 years, you come out and say every Muslim around us is actually a terrorist. You see, so what I'm saying now to the youth is, learn your history. Learn it also as a Muslim to understand, to be better aware of what's happening around you. And I'm saying also one thing, as I said before, I think we should sleep with eyes open, because honestly, I don't know what's going to happen in the future to us here. If I look back to our history of 700 years Spanish Islam and Spanish Muslims, then I fear for us in Britain, and in Germany, and in Spain, and in Italy. Don't you think so? I don't know if you fear about it, but I have children, and I do fear for them and for myself.
I think in your talk you kind of mentioned the amazing history of Islam, how it was a mercy to mankind. And I think in the history, the world was able to see the shining beacon as a tangible example. So it wasn't just like in the books or the books of history, which is, subhanAllah, that's one of the best things about Islam, that it's tangible and you can actually practice it specifically. Well, I think one of the issues we have today is that the system of Islam doesn't remain today. It's absent today. So people will associate Islam to nations that have corrupt leaders or groups like ISIS. So generally, this is the Islam, because this is the Islam they can see. I think what we need to go back to is understand, learn from our history, and realize how we bring the system of Islam back.
What I forgot to mention is, sorry that I interrupted you, sorry. One thing, a very important thing, what I say, what tell the youth, I would tell them, go back and look at our history and understand Islam properly. Don't look at these groups, okay? Do not look at these groups. Go back and understand Islam, and understand why the Muslims were so high. As Muslims, not as Arabs, as Turks, as whatever. They were high. Their civilization was an Islamic civilization. It was not a Turkish civilization. It was not an Iranian civilization. It was not Arab civilization. Nowadays, we have given nationalities to people. Nowadays, we call them Arabs and Arabs and whatever. They were not Arabs. Tariq bin Ziyad was not an Arab. The North African Muslims who went to Spain, most of them were not Arabs. Spanish Muslims were not Arabs. Portuguese Muslims were not Arabs. Balkan people, Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, what was he? Was he a Turk? Was he an Arab? He was a Kurd. He was a Kurd, Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. But you know what did he say? I'm fighting for Kurdistan? No, of course not. And that's what I want our people to understand, that as long as you come to the right path, that you follow Islam, be aware that things will come better, inshallah, and not that we go out there and do nonsense things. Okay, yes, Chris?
I think it's really important what you've said today. But I think it's really important so that there is another story to be told.
Thank you. Yes.
And that is a history which gives people pride in their heritage, pride in their faith, pride. And pride is not a bad thing. People say it's a sin. I don't think pride is a sin. I think if you can be proud of your heritage, take pride in what's been achieved, I think that's a really good thing. Yeah, and then it counters the story that it's laid out in the media that says that Muslim equals terrorist, because that isn't true. Not in my experience here in Loughborough, not in the experience of my colleagues who are deeply involved in interfaith, not only in Leicester, but across the country. There is some really powerful, strong stuff going on in interfaith, and a different story is being told. No one's trying to convert anybody, no one's trying to change anybody, just trying to show the value of all the faiths, and it's so important to have a story to tell that is counter to the story that we're being fed by the media.
Chris, thank you very, very much. Really an excellent input, very important one. Because, Chris, we know that, our friend Adolf Hitler did not just put Jews in chambers. He also put Anglican priests, Catholic priests, any other faith, black people. He put any kind of people, disabled. He put them in the gas chambers because for him, they were not worth being alive. Right? These people died because of the color of their skin, because of the different religion, because of the different belief, and not only because they were Jews. Jews was a big part, but there were so many other priests died in the gas chambers. Do you know that? I'm aware that you must probably know that, but I wonder if we are aware of it nowadays. There were Catholic priests who died in the chambers because they were against the system. We have to be aware of that, we have to know that. And that's what I keep telling my German counterparts. I tell them, listen guys, when I was going to school, I remember that in a history lesson, we had to just swallow everything, and I was the only one who could open my mouth because I was the only Greek in the class. And I could say, listen guys, I can say these things, and many of them agreed, and even my own, I remember, I will never forget it, my history teacher was the director of the school, and he would allow me to just have whole conversations with people, loud, about actually what it meant, National Socialism, what actually really happened, and the Germans should be as proud about Germany and about themselves as the British and the French are. And that they cannot open their mouth because of what happened. They are paying still nowadays for the sins that their forefathers committed. So I could do that because I'm not German. Otherwise, these guys would have found themselves probably, their parents had to come to school. And this is unfair. It's unfair. And you know what? I started loving Germany. I didn't like Germany when I was in Germany. But as soon as I left Germany in 1995, I started understanding that actually the people are not bad people. Germany is a good country. The Germans are not bad people as they keep portraying them here in this country until nowadays still. And I don't like it. Have you realized? Hollywood movies, these cartoons. Have you realized the crazy professor has a German accent?
Oh, but the baddies are all English.
The baddies are all English?
Oh yeah.
In what way?
There's a whole new breed of baddie in the
nowadays you do. Nowadays. I don't know about nowadays. But if you look at these, what are they called? Many cartoons from recently, still 10 years ago, most of them still, when you have a nutty professor, they speak German, they have a German accent. A very German accent. Okay? So, Doctor Who. Doctor Who. Not Doctor, James Bond and Doctor Who. I'm not talking about Doctor Who, the English one. The English series. James Bond, Doctor Who. He was German. He has a German accent at least. The bad guy. Okay? The villain. Now, that's it. Thank you very much. Honestly, Chris, that was very, very, very important input, and I really hope that we will do something. Now, what I wanted to say with that, I don't want to make it all too pessimistic, but you know what? As I said before, priests died in the gas chambers. Activists died in the gas chambers. Communists died in the gas chambers. Leftists died in the gas chambers. These were people like you and I sitting here and trying to change the world. I hope they will be able to. They will be more like us. But you know what? I don't know. Do you see that?
I'd like to think a majority of my colleagues will stand.
Yes, inshallah, we will. Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you. Really. Yes, ma'am.
You gave a lot of importance to history. Before Prophet ﷺ, Islam was the method of Islam, those people then accepted Islam in Arabia, and they gave up their previous history. So would you not say you should give prominence or precedence to the method of the Prophet ﷺ rather than history? What would you give more priority to?
The method of the Prophet and all the prophets.
See that the doings of the Prophet, the Quran, and the life of the Prophet, should we not give that more precedence over?
The life of the Prophet. Isn't this history?
It is history, but no, but what I'm saying is, the history before the Prophet ﷺ is also history as well. Yeah?
Yes, I mentioned the Byzantines today. I mentioned the Ottomans. Sorry, not the Ottomans. I mentioned the Byzantines today. I mentioned, many people before. I mentioned the Assyrians today. I mentioned the Sumerians. I mentioned all these people who were before. Of course. Of course. Why shouldn't we? I don't understand the question, because did I say we should not look at it before the Prophet's time?
No. I think what the brother's trying to say is that should we not pay more attention to the life of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ rather than the history that was?
Correct.
That's right. Yeah. What I'm trying to say is, what would you give more precedence to? Would you take the life of the Prophet as a protocol, or would you take history first?
If I wanted to look into how to live as a Muslim, how to improve my Islam, then of course I would look into the seerah of Rasulullah ﷺ, into the life of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. No doubt about it.
Before that had history as well, and they gave up that history.
Yeah, okay, what was the Arab history? Now let's be honest. I mean, okay, you're right. You're right, but I mean, let's be honest now, brother. What are the Arabs without Islam? As soon as the Arabs leave Islam, right? Whereas the Iranians, the Persians, had a history before Islam. Let's be honest now, we're honest here now, right? The Greeks had a history before Islam. The Romans had a history before Islam. There is a civilization that was there before Islamic civilization. But the Arabs had no civilization in the sense of civilization before Islamic civilization. Islamic civilization is what made the Arabian Peninsula what it is nowadays, my friend. And if they leave Islam, then they become worse than the Meccans of the time, or the Quraysh. So yes, very important what you're saying now. But not necessarily that they had to leave, or we have to leave, because as a Greek, I still look at my history. My people are also Greeks, not only the Muslims. So I'm looking at that history, but I'm looking at this through a different perspective. Finally, through the correct perspective, because I was taught nonsense and lies, which I'm not saying is lies nowadays, but others say already that it's lies and nonsense what they teach us at school. So I want finally to be taught to teach the right things, okay, where Islam plays a part, as it used to play. So that's what I'm saying. And today, the topic of today was Islamic civilization. What has Islamic civilization done for us in Europe? That was the topic today, and that's why I'm focusing on this one. But we can have another talk.
No, that's fine. I'm trying to relate my
and you should, yes.
To your history.
Okay. Good. Jazakallah khair. Yes. Yes, we should. We should definitely look before and after. Definitely. Yeah. Yes, brother.
Today you sort of mentioned about the West and the media and the focus is on Muslim. As soon as someone talks about being Muslim or showing outwardly that they're Muslim, whether the way they dress, they pray, or something, they're sort of vilified and put into a corner, as you said, at the start of your talk. What is it about Islam that the West fear? Because all these things that you mentioned, you should be grateful for them, because the Muslims, the history is quite rich. Today, the Muslims are put into a corner, and really the sort of examples we are given are not really representative of Islam. So what is it about Islam that the West are fearing, that's on the rise, that's within the Muslims that they're afraid of? Because the only thing I could see is you're pointing to a society that has rules and regulations of their own. For example, in Islam, you have an economic system, you have a social system, you have an economic system. So it's shown that Islam is more than a mere religion, and it's a complete way of life. Is this what the West is fearing, hence the attack on an ideological?
What's your name?
Abid.
Abid. Now listen, you really mentioned some absolutely crazily important points. Okay? First of all, your question will be answered tomorrow, but in Portsmouth, inshallah.
I will not be here.
No.
In Portsmouth.
Okay. No, I will be in Portsmouth tomorrow, inshallah, to answer exactly this question. The title and the topic is Islam bad for business? Now, if you go to HSBC, you're living in this country, right?
Yeah.
Okay, do you have an account?
I do.
With what bank? Not that I'm interested, sorry, but I'm just...
A bank.
With a bank. Yeah. HSBC, Lloyds, not Halifax. Barclays, they all have an Islamic section. They all have Islamic accounts, don't they? So do they fear you a bit when you go and say, you're Muslim, right? When you go and say, listen, I want an Islamic account. No problem, sir. You know, do you want to pay into your account today? So do they fear you? Sorry, so just give me a sec. So, do they fear you there? No. When you now go and you go to Tesco's, and you go shopping with your family, and in Tesco's there's a section where they have halal meat, and you buy halal meat and you go and, yes sir, thank you very much, and you pay £100, £150, right? Do they fear you there? No, right? What do they fear? You're absolutely right with saying Islam is not a religion. Islam is a deen. I've never mentioned in my whole talk today Islam religion, never.
No, I'm asking.
Yeah, sure. It's a deen. And deen in Arabic cannot be translated with religion in English. Okay? Religion, with the understanding that we have in English, or the European understanding of religion, is something that you go on Sunday when you go to church and you go back. That's religion. Sorry? So deen is more type of a way of life. Yes. Everything I do is part of me being a Muslim. The way I speak, the way I conduct myself, the way I dress, what I tell you, how I do it, with my right hand I pick up to drink the water, and so on and so on. This is all part of Islam. Okay? So now, what do the people in the West fear? They don't fear your business. The businesses, nowadays there is halal tourism. Nowadays there is halal banking. Nowadays there is Islamic finance, there is Islamic this, Islamic that. They know that in the future, with 1.8 billion Muslims and more, there's a lot to gain from these Muslims. But the problem is they don't mind you praying 10 times a day. But they do have a problem if you want to put your system on their system. We have an elite that's ruling the world, right? This elite lives on the system of interest. This elite lives on the problems that we have nowadays in the West, right? Greece, Iceland, and so on. If you now come and say, I don't want to pay interest, that's a problem. That's a problem. You go into their pockets then. If you now come and say, I don't want to follow your system of whatever, what is there? You know, let's say taking a student loan. That goes against Islam because you have to pay interest later, you know that, right? Taking a student loan, the way that they have it nowadays, you know, that's what the Muslim societies are trying to still change nowadays, but the way it is actually haram for us because we cannot pay interest later, and interest is increasing from the moment that you take a student loan. Yes. So that's what they fear, that you change a system where some of the people are comfortable in.